And we're live.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Baron Davis, your host to Business Inside the Game. As you know, I started Business Inside the Game as a platform to talk about wins in business, the learning of business. How do you transition from an athlete, an entrepreneur, a musician in the public sector? You know, what are your skills and traits that are helping you become who you are and to become successful? I'm super excited today because we have an amazing partnership with the NBPA. We have the one and only, none other, Michele Roberts, the head of the NBPA. And we decided that we wanted to partner up to really talk about, life, culture, justice, voting, economics, and just so excited to be able to kick off this series of town halls. And first I wanted to give you your famous Business Inside the Game intro, Michele. Starting at point guard, the initiator, the controller of traffic, emotions, and all things resulting to player, management and goals. Michele Roberts has been an incredible lawyer, a fellow at the American College of Trial, former chief trial division in the District of Columbia. You were ranked one of the top lawyers in the District of Columbia. You fought for social justice, you fought for prison reform. Now you're the head of the NBPA. I'm excited to bring to everyone. She can score, she can dish, she can shoot three. Ladies and gentlemen, Michele Roberts. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me there. Of course.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this your manifesto. Protect, support, and amplify. And, why did the NBPA, want to come to the table and with these town halls? I think it's amazing.
Yeah, well, as you know, because you've been down this road before, NBA players pretty much do march to their own drummer. So by no means should anyone assume that this was my idea or the PA's idea. We are completely player driven, completely player supportive. And so the activity that people are seeing that the PA is engaged in right now is a result of what the players want to see the PA engaged in. Our mission is to protect, support, and amplify. Our mission is to protect our players' rights, support our players' rights, and to amplify our players' voices, because we appreciate that our players are leaders in their communities, leaders in their local communities, national communities, and internationally. And so what we're doing is essentially doing what the players have mandated what they want to see done. Probably all of us, the reasons that we enjoy working for the players as much as we do is because these are men that feel very, very strongly a commitment to their communities. And what's happening doesn't happen outside of their world. They are part of the world, and it's part of their world. And so our wanting to engage with you is because we appreciate, players appreciate that we need to continue this discussion, allow for more platforms where these discussions can take place, and let people get a better sense of where the players believe that they can be helpful, and to find out from their communities where they can be helpful. So this is a great idea, and we're so pleased with this partnership.
No, we're extremely excited as well. I think that these town hall series are to really bring people together to, create these conversations that can exist, right? That, not only in live, but for people to exchange and watch, further, but, really to identify change. And more important, what we talk about and always talk about is solution, right? And so how can we be more solution based? And that leads me, to the letter that you wrote with to the NBPA members in response to the police killings, right? Change the structure that governs us, right? Those were powerful thoughts. Can you expand upon, one, the importance of the letter, but also, when you said change the structures that govern us, I thought, that was something that I really wanted to touch upon.
Yeah. I mean, the letter was prompted by recognizing that our players, like most of us in the community, were just horrified by the continued death of Black men at the hands of bad police officers. And I underscore bad police officers. And it was clear to me and clear to all of us that it was, the anguish was again.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I mean, I'm obviously older than all the players, but one of the things that I certainly have come to realize in my lifetime is it will always be again, unless we talk about doing things, changing things in a way that will stop it, right? We can try to make people appreciate that Black Lives Matter, but at the end of the day, some people aren't going to appreciate that Black Lives Matter. So you have to start focusing on how you can change the system, how you can change the structures that allow this to happen. And one of the things we've been focusing on is, okay, bad people are bad people, but if they know that they're not going to get away with it, then that might stop them. What are the structural changes that need to be made in order to, for example, in connection with police misconduct, stop that? And we began to look at the structures. We began to look at local prosecutors. We began to look at local mayors who appoint police chiefs. Noticed that a lot of these people who are refusing to indict police officers are elected. And so we began to talk about how we could begin to make changes at the structural lane, not just nationally, but locally. And that's where players are beginning to focus their attention on. So the notion of being angry, of course, and anguished, of course, that's real. But if we want to avoid having to say, not again, 5, 10 years from now, then we've got to talk about structural change.
Yeah. And now to see, our players step up, right? And now more than ever, the players are leading these marches. The players are, up front and center. I think, talk about the amplification and how important, right, is their minds, right? Because you always talk about that, and their voices.
And I say this a lot. When at the beginning of every season since I've gotten this job, I try to acquaint myself with the new players that are coming in, the new draft prospects. And one of the things that I continue to find myself shocked about is social media platforms alone. Our players have tens of millions of followers. I mean, hundreds of millions of followers.
Right.
That is an audience that is unparalleled. Right? I mean, who in the world would have thought that a 19-year-old kid could have 300,000 people to know what he's thinking on a given? And then you've got the marquee players. So this platform is huge, and it can be impactful, and the players know that. And what they're doing is responsibly exploiting that platform. They're saying, okay, I feel very strongly about this issue, and there are tens of millions of people that want to hear what I have to say. They're going to hear this.
Right.
It is enormous. I mean, they've got an ability to influence, unlike just about any other group of people you could possibly imagine. And they're using the power of their voices in a way to promote the interests that are top of mind for them. And it makes me very, very proud.
Yeah, and you are, in these meetings, and they're not only are they lending their voices, right? They're frustrated, right, and they have to go back, to play, and play in a bubble, let alone, you're in the bubble. Can you just expand upon the responsibility, right, and the pressure, and how these young men have, basically it's like they like thrive off of it, and they don't get enough compassion for what what the situation that they're put in, having to play in a bubble situation.
Yeah, I mean, people assume that this can't be that bad because they're just playing basketball. First off, they're not just playing basketball; they're playing basketball on a level that few of us can even appreciate. But what's going on here is that we are literally removed from the rest of the world. We have televisions and we've got books, but we're not in the world. We have to engage the world through television and through media, but we're not in the world. We don't have our families here. Now, I don't have any young children. I'm too old to have any young children, but I've got players here who have toddlers, newborns, and they've not seen their family members for months.
Long time.
We're talking about not being able to even interact with someone. I mean, touching each other is frowned upon, right? We got to do social distancing. And not having the support of your loved ones when people are at home getting sick, people are at home afraid to get sick. We've had a couple of pregnancies, a couple of births since we've been here. We've had some deaths since we've been here.
Absolutely.
Those of us who are at home are dealing with the pandemic and dealing with this virus. And that's bad enough. But if you at least have your support network with you, it's a lot easier. These guys don't have that. And on top of that, they're asked to compete at the highest level. I only hope people appreciate the tremendous sacrifice, not only are the players making, but their families are making by being separated them from them for a period of time. And then on top of all of that, when we hear about the continued killings and beatings, and need to protest, it's a lot of weight. It's a lot of baggage for these men to have to contend with, and they're doing a remarkable job. And so I, for one, applaud them. And I think if people sit back and think about it, we're not here simply providing great entertainment.
Right, right. We have a voice, and these guys have really, they've stood up and become our next generation leaders, right? And I think that goes back to the NBPA's manifesto, right? And a lot of these guys posting the manifesto. Saw a lot of guys posting Chris Bosh and him voting, right? I think for Big, our manifesto is really about aligning Black and brown pathways, right, of success, right, and providing them with the right resources to help them be able to create, a sustainable economic ecosystem, right? And so, you see from community, right, how a communal thought can inspire people. I would love for you to expand upon the manifesto and tell the people out there exactly what the manifesto is and why you guys came up with it.
Well, we want to, as a union, our first priority is to support the players, but it's also to amplify what the players find is important. So to the extent, and it's just actually the case, that the players want us to push forward their social justice interests, we do that. So, for example, clearly in the PA, we are committed to inclusion and diversity and empowering people of color within the PA. We do that, I think, hands down, without a doubt. Better than anybody. But one of the things that the players want to see happen as well is that it's partnership, that PA's partnerships have to reflect that same commitment to diversity and inclusion. So, look, you know this, Darren, basketball generates a lot of money. A ton of money is being made in this game. I'm not complaining, right? That's a good thing. The point is that a lot of this money, which is being made largely by African-American players, is not trickling back into our communities. In other words, we're not engaged as much as we can be with business partners that reflect the diversity of our members, of our players. One of the things that we sat with the league to discuss was how the league would be as committed to inclusion and diversity as the PA is, as our players are. Business relationships, because that's important.
Absolutely.
Same thing with respect to management. Our team tell you how the front offices don't look a lot like us, because they don't. But we want the teams to as
At
well.
all.
Right? We want to make inclusion and diversity. And even with our for-profit business, we want to make sure that we as well
Right.
the same walk that we expect others to walk, and that we want to partner with people that are committed to, and not only committed to on paper, but in fact by virtue of the makeup and complexity of their companies to inclusion and diversity. So, that's what the players insisted on, and that's
Yep.
what we're insisting on, and that's part of the manifesto, to amplify their voices, to amplify what they want to see happen in the community, and we're doing it.
I love it. I think that, one, since you've been there, we've seen, massive amount of change and growth and inclusion just from the NBA listening to the players, right? Can you just talk about, your relationship with Adam and the PA's relationship with the NBA, as far as, being the leaders in this space to say, okay, enough, this is a target, how do we solve that? Can you, just speak about, how you guys process that and go through those
Yeah,
discussions?
the good news, the interesting news is, at or about the time I got the job was the Donald Sterling, right?
Yep.
And I don't think I'd been hired yet, but I was watching it like the rest of the world. And the thing that made me decide I got to work with these men was watching the players essentially tell the league, this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
He's got to go.
You got to go.
One of us is leaving, and what you going to do? And needless to say, he left. But it not only did it let me know I wanted to work with these men, because it was exactly the position I wanted them to take. But it also said to me, this is the necessary relationship between the players and the league. This labor management traditional relationship.
Yeah.
Adam, if you're going to call us partners, then you're going to behave like a partner.
Right.
That's the way we roll, right? I mean, look, I get that he's got responsibilities to the governors, and he gets that I have responsibilities to the players. But if you're going to say partners, we're going to be partners, and that means you're going to listen. That means we're going to listen. That means we're going to discuss. That means we're going to talk about it, and we're going to try to come to some consensus. And I got to tell you, Baron, the players aren't shy about having a conversation with any team governor, with the commissioner, with the deputy commissioner. I'm frequently in the room enjoying the popcorn. Right? But the good news is that we have a good relationship with the league, today, and hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully the day after that. But it's because of the notion that if you're going to call us a partner, then we're going to be a partner. And so
right. And I would say, when we talk about, impact and serving the community, I think you hinted on that. I like to, pose a question as far as like, how do you impact the communities? And it's usually the PA that's first, right? So in this partnership, is it the PA's role to be first to, impacting the community?
In some regards, I think the answer is yes. It's because sometimes the players have a better sense of what the community needs than partners, right?
Yep.
And certainly the players aren't going to rely on the league or the team to tell them how to best serve the community. So the players' responsibility, self-imposed, is, okay, we want to talk to, we understand what hurts. It hurts us too. And we want to engage in our community. And we're going to do that on an individual basis. And our players are incredibly generous with their time and their money. But we also want you teams to do the same, give your time and money. And we want to be in the room when you decide how to invest money in our communities, because we think we know best how that's done. So we formed some recent partnerships, and we're working on some more, where there's no question that the players will, if not take the lead, will certainly not follow the league's lead in determining how to best serve our communities, because we are.
Right. And then I wanted to pick up on, the amplifying, right? Because this is the first time that the PA has come in. One, they have, you got the rights back, right? You got the players their rights back. And now, looking at where we are in social justice, looking at where we are in Black entrepreneurship, looking at, you know, this league looks more, like the players on TV, and on the back end, they look like more of the back end people on TV, right? But where is the sense of, ownership, right? Talk about the vision for, players now having their rights, and also the vision for, the PA supporting entrepreneurs. Because, one, myself being a former player and an entrepreneur, the PA has stepped up and, really provided, for us. Just, speak about that, because I think that, that was really, it's still a futuristic, kind of thought and idea, but I think that you guys are, making incredible strides. Can you expand them?
Our for-profit, it's, I think 450 is the name of the company, um, as well recently reaffirmed its commitment to inclusion and diversity. And one of the things, or several things that they insisted they're going to do. And one is to look at our current partners, right? Our current licensees, our current sponsorship partners, brand partners, and take a look at their diversity and inclusion numbers. You want to do business with us and you don't have anybody that looks like us in your corporate structure. Can you explain why? Can you tell us what you're going to be doing to improve that? So those kinds of discussions are taking place. We also want very much, and I'm somewhat impatient. I think they're doing a great job to be able to engage in new relationships, business relationships with more diverse groups. To begin with former players. We are doing business with former players. That's a great place to start, because most of the former players look like current players.
Yeah.
So by of our former players, we by definition almost end up engaging in more business practices with people of diverse backgrounds. And then we want to make sure that we promote small businesses, not just large companies, but small businesses, because they tend to be overrepresented by diverse groups. And so, it's funny because we ended up, just even here in the bubble, we wanted to get some t-shirts done for our guys. Russell Westbrook has a company.
Right.
And he looks like most of the players. So we do business when we can have an opportunity to need something done, a product created, a service provided. Then one of the first things we do is, okay, who can we bring in that's either a current member, former member, but again, consistent with our commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Right.
How are we functioning? How are we walking the walk that we're demanding that the league walk, that we're demanding that our other licensees walk? We have to be about it if we're going to be about it. And so, again, they're brand new at this because we didn't get our rights back until 3 years ago. But
Right.
it's good.
No, that's amazing. And I think within the last month or so, the NBPA and the NBA partnered up with the Board of Governors to create the first of this kind of foundation committing $300 million over the next decade. What does this mean for the community? Because I thought that, that was a huge first step, into actually going out and creating something.
Yeah, I think part of it is that we've all known that there are, even if we don't ourselves spend 24/7 engaged in trying to move things forward, there are an unbelievable array of committed folks in small organizations and in large organizations that have been out engaged in the struggle, and what they sorely need are resources. And we tend to give money to the same groups over and over. And I'm not calling names out because that would be wrong, because they're doing good stuff too. But there's still so much work to be done, and there's so many good people out there willing to do it. They just need the resources. And so while our players have been for years individually making financial contributions in their communities, and our own foundation has been for years matching those player contributions. And I'll give the NBA credit; they have too been engaged in pooling its resources and contributing and both the league and individual teams the problem is it's clearly not been fixed. And so one of the things, again, in our discussions with the team, with the league and with the team before we resumed play was, let's increase our commitment. And yes, it's not only money, it's a lot of footwork, a lot of thinking, a lot of that, but it's also money. And so
Right.
the foundation was born out of those discussions. It's still in the process of being formulated. And recently today, we got some more information about the owners. We're going to be part of the foundation. We're going to or the players are going to be on the board. But it's again just a recognition that while people can claim to have been doing things, there's so much more to be done. And so let's increase our commitment if our commitment remains strong. And that's the foundation is a reflection.
And then, I'm about to ask you about this bubble and this walkout.
I need to know.
you know, uh, that was powerful, right? I think that one, nobody understood it, right? I think everybody was caught off guard. I like to start there, right? Can we start, first of all, we were, I'm sure everyone was caught off guard, but I wasn't, right? So, can you just talk about, at that moment, on that day, or even 3 days before, what the players were feeling when even before they decided, right? And then I want to also talk about, the great opportunity that you guys came in, and in 48 hours was able to come out, with this justice fund. So, first loved it. We would all love to hear.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I can. I mean, recall that before we even got down here, there had been a ton of discussion among players about whether to even come, whether it made sense to restart the season at all, because our guys, understandably, were just overwhelmed by what had happened. I mean, these police shootings continued, and just before we were about to start, and there was another one, and guys were all over the place. What the hell on here? Are we going to in any way, if we restart, detract from what is a great discussion and response to what's going on? And so that happened, and it was real, and it was terrific. The conversation needed to be had, and it was had. And then obviously, the decision was, okay, we're going to come back. We're going to come to Orlando. We're going to play, but we're also going to use this platform to amplify what we all believe to be the message that needs to be communicated. And that's what was being done. I mean, you could not, whether you liked it or not, if you turned on a game, you read and saw and heard that Black Lives Matter. Whether you liked it or not, when the player was being interviewed, he talked about Breonna Taylor. He talked about George Floyd. So the players were doing a phenomenal job of continuing the conversation. They were internally engaged in self-education. We had a number of people that we did Zoom calls with that were helping the players sort of get more information. All that was going on, and we were playing. But not, and you said it yourself, Baron. You weren't surprised. I suppose on some level, none of us was.
Right.
We felt incredibly hurt to hear about yet another shooting. So that morning, the morning that it happened, I remember checking Twitter, and someone said, "I just saw the video, and I wish I hadn't." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I hope it's just another video of perhaps our president saying something."
Right.
But I knew in my heart it wasn't. I knew it had to be one of us. And as I walked around the campus, more and more players were showing obvious outrage. I was looking at social media, and guys were upset and angry and frustrated, just like all of us, just like those of us at home were. It was happening here in the bubble. And while I knew something was going to happen, for a while, I didn't know what it was. And the players were talking among themselves. They were having meetings, and they were trying to decide what they wanted to do. And you know this, Baron, because you're in the club, players only. And I've always expected that. It's because I ain't a player. I wait till they say Michele needs it. And then when it happened, it literally happened with no one except Milwaukee at that moment knowing it was going to happen. They said, we're not playing. they had a meeting, and again, I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell if I wanted to, but they said we're not playing, and it was very quickly spread to the rest of the teams. And other teams that were scheduled to play that night said, "Well, we're not playing either." And before you know it, you got 200 players in a banquet hall talking among themselves that night. They did let me in, so I was.
I would say, let me in.
And again, I'm a strong believer that our meetings are what happens in the meeting stays in the meetings, but I can certainly share that there was some very, very, very high level discussion about whether or not it made sense to continue to play. It lasted for several hours. Everyone that wanted to speak spoke. Every team spoke collectively and individually. And we got some things decided, but not everything.
Right.
But what was clear was we were not simply going to just return to play as usual.
Mm-hmm.
The following day, there was another meeting, and by then there had been a decision made that we were going to amp up our efforts. Again, I mean, we'd already had meetings with the league about
Right.
the league to include the foundation, but some other things that they were going to commit to do. But at that moment in time, the players wanted the league and the owners to recommit and commit in a way that exhibited direct action. And we talked about, the players talked about with the league, what particular power the owners had that the players didn't, that they wanted them to exercise. And out of that came the whole notion of the arenas. Now, to give the league some credit, some of that was happening already, but the players wanted the owners to reconfirm their commitment to voting. That's was important.
Absolutely.
And then this coalition, this notion of a coalition, which again is still being created, but where there would be not just because someone got shot, but we would create something that would be all about addressing these issues during the season, off the season, forever, to demonstrate a commitment to changing systemic racism. So it was several days, incredible conversations between players and coaches. We had referees who were supporting players. I mean, I have to tell you that athletes outside of our game were being supportive. It was a remarkable moment in time, and one in which, once again, I came out being even more proud of the fact I work for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are you're mobilizing, right? And I think that is what, solution-based organizations, and this new wave of, organizations should be thinking, right? And, as we continue, laying the groundwork, right? What is our call to action, right? So, now that, some guys are leaving out the bubble, some guys are still in the bubble, how are we continuing to kind of progress forward, knowing that voting is coming up, right? What are some of the things that, that you would like to call out, for us and all of our audience to be aware of?
Voting is so immediate that there's a reason for it to be the focus of attention now, because it's just a matter of, now it's less than 60 days. Voting is going to take place. The underscore, though, is we're not simply talking about the presidential election. That's I'm not
right.
Important.
Right.
But I mean, and I've made this point a little earlier. These local elections are so important.
Incredible.
You need to find out who the DA is in your community. Is he or she elected? What's been his or her track record in terms of investigating instances of police misconduct? How many allegations of police misconduct have been made, and what has he or she done about investigating? Is it the case that there's only been, and I'll make these numbers up, 100 people who have alleged police misconduct? Not a single police officer has been investigated.
Right.
Was a prosecutor in office at the time? Is he or she up for re-election? Who's his or her opponent? Right. Those are the kinds of questions we need to be asking. Who's the mayor of this city that refuses to fire the police chief, despite the fact the police chief will not engage in an internal investigation? Who is the DA? I mean, who is the governor? So again, the presidential election, absolutely critical. You want to make sure that you're engaged in that. But the call to action that the players have been making, and I completely endorse and agree with it, is don't stop at the presidential piece, because whoever the president is not going to be the person that's going to be in a position to fire the DA. It's going to be in a position to fire the police chief. But the DA is someone you can fire right now if he or she has not been taking seriously police misconduct. So that's the call to action, the immediate call to action, because we can do some things about this. The guy that is charged with deciding whether or not to indict Breonna Taylor's cops was elected last year.
Right.
Right.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. If people had been paying attention, that jurisdiction was not doing a good job in terms of reacting to allegations of police misconduct. There could have been a DA put in that would have been responsive to the community if the community had been paying attention. We got to start paying attention.
Yeah, and I think that we also need to start servicing this information, right? It's not always, the big macro thing like, the president election, right? And then everybody's thinking about voting. Well, we could have voted for someone else last year, right? And so, really just articulating what we need to do from a housekeeping perspective, right? And I think from a local perspective, for me, it's like, that's what I want to be able to, one, get out of these series of town halls, right? Is to keep, getting people to understand that there's layers underneath, what you see as success, and to really start to drill in. And for me to really understand and take notes to see how can we come up with a solution, right? That we can continue these town halls, right? And actually touch the lives, right? Have the impact for certain people and also our players. I'd like to ask you, Michele, since, you decided to partner with us, what are you expecting to get out of these town halls?
I want us to make sure that we are, in fact, getting information from the communities that are affected. I mean, some of us sometimes become arrogant and think we know what's best for these communities, and we know what's best for you, or we really know what's going on, and we just don't. And so, that there'll be an ability for community leaders, members of the community, to be able to share, what kinds of and again, I'll keep going back to police accountability, but what the police accountability has been like in the communities. We need to learn more about that. We need to know whether or not there is a civilian complaint review board, so that if there are allegations of misconduct, what in your community is available to you,
right?
Complaint against a police officer. So certainly, I want these town halls to be the place where we can receive information. But I also think that a lot of us need to hear information, and so
right.
The men and women who have been the soldiers in these struggles for the last decade, or even if they're brand new to it, they need to help us identify who they are. And so if you can help identify who the members of the community are who have been in those streets, been trying to make a difference, actually going to City Hall and demanding that mayors, we need to know who they are. We need to have you help us identify who they are so we can support them. And then we need to organize, right? And if we know that there's, for example, some DA, and I keep using this, that's up for election, and he doesn't have an opponent, and he's been completely useless in terms of listening to the community, we need to go ahead and get somebody.
In there, yeah.
So it's almost what I would describe as just an opportunity for exchange of information and tactics. Because if we're all running around doing different things, some of that can be effective, but we can certainly be more effective if we're more organized. So it's a town hall, because that's what town halls do.
Absolutely.
You receive and you impart information.
And what does success look like to the NBPA?
The reason that I remember when Rodney King was was luckily not beaten to death 20 years ago is because success doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
But for me, it's horrible as these times are right now. Um, for me, who watched black men be killed and see a headline or maybe, and then it's over. As horrible as these times are now, the fact that people are still in the streets, the fact that people are still talking about it,
Right.
is success. It is not complete success, but it is a success.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that continues to move the needle, as opposed to it suddenly becoming yesterday's news. If we can continue the conversation, if we can do what the players are doing, and that is keeping this discussion going, then that to me is a success. Uh, success.
That was my next question. What does change and success look like to you, as far as America, right? You
When,
know,
when the number of police shootings and beatings of poor people are reduced, as opposed even for 1 year, as opposed to increase every year. Um, Again, success is utopia, and it's
mhm, mhm,
see that. But I'll take what I can get, and if we can begin by having the police officer think, oh, maybe I will not put my knee on this brother's neck because I might get indicted.
mhm.
That's success, as opposed to a police officer that thinks cops don't get locked up.
I
I'm
agree.
not greedy.
Yeah, no, I mean, me neither. And I believe that success is also these measured goals, right? And starting with the coalition, right? Starting with the fund, right? Starting with the players getting their rights back. Starting with being able to say, you know what, for the first time ever, we not playing. You know what I mean? For the first time ever, he does not fit or represent what we consider to be ours. And so, when you see the players, taking effect, when you see the PA mobilizing, right? And then, to the NBA credit, right? You see the NBA listening, right? Because it also takes the other side, to be able to receive and listen and hear and be clear. Um, I think that is how we need to measure our goals for success and the success that I want to get to, one in this town hall. And so, last couple questions I would say is, we do not leave business inside the game without asking you to, give your business inside the game. Like what has been that common trait, right? When we call them Michele, right? No matter what it is on the basketball court, in the conference room, in the board room, in the entrepreneur space, for entrepreneurs and our people out there, what is that business inside the game that you would like to depart, or that trait or that skill for our listeners?
I've always maintained, and it wasn't something I came up with. Just about all of us that look like us have been told you got to run faster to get halfway there, right? You got to be smarter to get half of what you deserve. I mean, and it's one of the things I've always admired about the men I work for. Um, Hard work is hard work.
Yep.
And there's just no getting around having to do that in order to achieve excellence. And one of the reasons why it drives me mad when there's a suggestion that people that look like us don't perform well is because I know how much we have to do and to get any semblance of recognition. And so when I think about and interact with entrepreneurs of color that have had any modicum of success, I know how many sleepless nights and days when they wondered about being able to pay the rent and bills. I know what sacrifices they've had to make to get there. And so without any hesitation, when someone presents a business plan or proposal to us that is good work, I know that they're going to succeed because I know how much of a sacrifice they've made. But I've always said that 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 the reason I can do that without much, if any, hesitation is because those men and women that come to us, you are a prime example. I've worked for asses off. We work very hard, and so those of you who are out there who are saying, I want to be able to be a successful entrepreneur in sports or whatever, you can't sleep on it.
Right.
You can't sleep on it. You gotta make a commitment, and the payoffs are grand.
Absolutely.
You can't sleep on it because, frankly, whether it's fair or not, the majority community won't let you.
Yep, that's so true. And as we wrap up, is there any information that you want to leave, our viewers about the PA? Any information that is close to you or urgent?
Well, what I would say is, again, to the extent there was any question about the players' commitment to wanting to help move these issues forward, please erase those questions. We're here. We want to be helpful. You can always reach us on our website, contact our foundation. If there's anything that you believe, and no matter how small, that our players can do to support your community and your community's efforts, that not for 1 second should you not reach out, because this is the time. The time is now, and we're ready, and we appreciate our responsibility to support the community. We support the players, and we protect the players. Our amplification is for the players, but it's all because the players at the end of the day want to support their communities. And so feel free. I shouldn't say this. I get 5,000 emails a day. Feel free to email me.
With that note, on behalf of Business Inside the Game, we'd like to thank you, Michele. We'd like to thank the NBPA for this partnership. And you guys can catch us the next time. Our next conversation is the power and the right to vote, our history and our future. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to our group of panelists. That's going to be next Thursday, September 24th. And we're going to be talking about voting, mobilizing. And thank you for this opportunity, Michele. Thank you for spending the time with us. I know you have a lot of stuff to do. So, we appreciate your time.
Baron, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, great.
Bye-bye.